All right, you guys. So we're starting off this retreat. I'm already moving too much. We're starting off this retreat with things that you need to do to get it right. So many times, especially at Ruby, it's like my team, my team, my team. We want to help our team. We want our team to help us, whatever it is. You guys have to get yourselves right. I just laughing at the sunglasses. I just realized that people wearing sunglasses. Bless your hearts. What can we do about this? Nothing. Nothing. That's terrible. Anyways, you guys, you guys have to get yourselves right. You have to work on yourselves first because it's the law of the lid. Your team is only going to be able to rise to whatever level you are at yourself, whether it's personal growth, your IPA, the things you show up for, the excuses you make. Your team is going to follow what you do. And that's why we don't have negativity. Don't go talking to your downline about your crisis. Go up. And if you don't have someone to talk to your husband, like anybody but your downline. I don't care if they're your best friend or not. That is not leading yourself well. And I know that is really hard to hear because my best friends are all my downline. So I get it. I've had several lonely years of not being able to complain about whatever was going on. So make sure you get into your own head and work on yourself. This training is not about your team. This is about you. And I know as a leader, because we want to help everyone, it's hard to be like, let me focus on myself right now. But everything that you do, this for yourself, this is how you're going to lead your team. Yeah, I think the main thing is we often talk about we want to create leaders and we want to create leaders who are creating leaders. But before we can do that, is sometimes it's not natural to focus on ourselves and put time into ourselves or think of ourselves first. But by doing that, that is the best way you can lead your people. So we're going to really focus in on that today with this training in terms of why it is, well, we can talk about that. So traits of a leader. So having focus on what that means to you. What are traits of a leader? We think of, having vision, belief, problem-solving mentality, being coachable, having good character, having good morals, being able to have people trust you. You're learning, you're always learning yourself and you're teaching from what you learn, right? So that means you're taking in information and then you are passing it along. If you are constantly learning, but you are not passing on, you're missing the boat, right? With the leadership part. But you can't just keep passing on the same things. You have to be learning new things, having passion and charisma, having people want to follow you, adding value. So what traits, whatever those are, what are the traits that you want to embody as a leader? And then identifying those and being very, very intentional with how you are growing them. It's not like, okay, yep, I got this, I'm good. We're always growing, right? So are you being intentional in those traits and self-aware of where you need growth in those areas? So, go ahead. I would say the most important thing that you can have, no matter how many years you've been doing this, is charisma, enthusiasm, and excitement for what you are doing every day. If you are Brittany talked about it, if you're feeling grateful and you are blessed and you are excited for where you are going, you're going to wake up excited. You're going to wake up ready to pour into your people. I had no idea what I was doing in this business, but I just knew we were excited. And that is how we built all the way to the top. We didn't go up and down because we were so laser focused on having our emotions right and having that vision and belief for where we are going. Sometimes it's hard to lead yourself because we lie to ourselves. That's another hard truth, you guys. We lie to ourselves. Why we can't make it to something, or why we can't do our IPA, or why we're venting to our downline. If your sentence has a but in it, I know I shouldn't have, but I'm not trying to be negative, but you are what you just said before that, but. So get that out of there. And I had to realize that. Lori Welch told me, you're negative. I'm like, no, I'm not negative. I am positive. I'm happy. I'm going to die. How can you be negative if you think you're going to be a diamond? And she's like, you're negative. Read a book. And I was like, all right, even if I'm not, I'm going to work on it. I will never be negative again. It wasn't true. Still, it sinks back in sometimes, but you have to fight it. So we're going to be talking about diving into like what Phallin just said. Why is it difficult to even lead yourself in the first place? you know, in terms of having that double standard, it can be very easy to have a double standard for yourself and for your people. Sometimes that looks like judging others by their actions and what they are doing or not doing, or calling that excuses, and looking at yourself and looking at your intentions and calling it a reason that you can't do something. So do you have different standards for yourself versus your team? It's easy to know what to do. A lot of you guys, you know, have been around and heard all the trainings, you know what to do, right? So it's easy to then tell your people and teach your people, but are you reflecting and are you holding yourself to those same standards? It also requires getting out of your comfort zone. And you guys hear that a million times, don't tune me out, but when is the last time you did something out of your comfort zone? Are you intentionally doing those things on a regular basis? We encourage our people to, but how are you leading in that? And how are you growing in that? Because that's how we grow. Yeah, it's hard too, because there's no one telling you to get out of bed. Your upline, we all know it. Your upline can't tell you what to do. You have to do this. You have to show up or you're getting fired. There's no firing in this business. You are responsible for yourself, and that can be hard, again, because we'll make excuses for ourselves, but they'll feel like reasons. One of my favorite books ever is The Slight Edge, and it's the little things that we do that compound, the little things. You know how it is. You're working out, you're doing great, but as soon as you tell yourself, I'm going to skip today, tomorrow gets easier to skip. And the next day it gets easier to skip. So I always had a standard for myself. I don't have it right now with the working out, other priorities, but don't let yourself say no. Do it anyways. Even if it's hard, do some sort of showing up in your business. We're going to talk about it in a bit, but if it's hard, do something. And Natalie Dolan says, at least have one touch on your business every day. Do something so you are still staying involved and engaged in your business. Okay, so how do you check yourself as a leader? So do a self-assessment, check yourself. What are some things you need to look at? In terms of the concept of saying no to some things, we talk about it, right? You have to be able to say no. You can't say yes to everything. But what does that mean? How do you evaluate what you say no to? So you have to decide what your priorities are with your business, and you have to decide what your priorities are with your home life, your interests, your family, whatever that is. And just because you have to say yes to something with your work priorities does not mean you're choosing that over your family. I feel like sometimes that is a big thing. We're like, well, my family's most important, you know, God, family, work. And so this is going to get chosen first, but just because you're making a priority in your business does not mean it's one or the other. You're having priorities on both, and it's balancing both of those. And it's not in sacrifice of that. Like sometimes I think we have that mentality of having, do you have anything to say with that? Or? I feel like, I mean, we were talking about this when we were working on the training, like, is there some sort of rule we can give people? And I feel like if you're skipping 5 calls a year, I mean, where do you draw the line? Like, we, through our business, we'd show up sick. I heard Jessica Hugendorf say she was training and she ran out to throw up and she came back to train. I'm like, that's dedication. I can't do that. But that's some dedication right there. And yet we make excuses. Oh, it's my anniversary. Do you have to celebrate your anniversary on a Thursday night? Can you celebrate that on a Friday? I'm not choosing this work trip over my son because I left my baby home. I am choosing my baby and my business. I can do both. He's happy. He's taken care of. Can someone else do those things for you? And we that's lying to yourself. Oh, this is my son's priority. Are we making birthdays that big of a deal? They're a big deal, but can you do it on a Saturday? I tell my husband, why are you asking me now? It's a work night. I'm doing this on Sunday. And he understands that's the priorities we have. I can tell you, I have never felt in my entire business like I have chose my business over my family. But sometimes I rearrange my priorities. Sometimes bedtime's a little earlier on Thursday night when I'm a single mom and I am getting everyone to bed. And I have to do it before book club. Doesn't mean my kids aren't a priority because I'm not reading 20 bedtime stories that night. Something we have to think about. Absolutely. Being aware of where you do miss some things. If there's I mean, there are exceptions, right? So if I'm hanging out with family or with friends on a night and they're friends I could reschedule for another night, I have my work meetings at night, right? I'm not scheduling those. You have something that's a once a year thing and you randomly do it, that's different. You might have something that, you know, you have that flexibility to miss here and there, but
be intentional on that. And when, you know, something is missed, if you miss a work meeting, miss something that's important on a Monday or Thursday night, you know, when we typically have our stuff, then I'm very mindful that I'm not missing again, or I'm stepping away from what I'm doing to make the next one. So sometimes that is the sacrifice of having fun or stepping away for a second and coming back. So how you are leading as yourself in those moments is how your team is going to duplicate. They are going to follow what you do. If you are making excuses, if you are missing things, guess what? You might start seeing that pattern on your team.
And that is where your team will duplicate everything you do. The speed of the leader is the speed of the pack. They say that whatever you do, you can count on your team doing half. And so I was like, I better show up hardcore because I expect them to do the same. You're going to have to look at the books you're reading too. Are you lying to yourself, saying you're reading a book because we did book club book? Are you really reading the chapters? Or are you just showing up and saying you read it, but you didn't read it? Why are you not doing the action? Why am I not reading the book? Why am I not showing up? That's something else to ask yourself. Why am I letting this be a priority? Do I not prioritize my business? It's not enough to just be like, I'm gonna show up even when it's hard, but why are we not? You can't blame your team for your lack of desire to do the things. If you're not showing up or doing the things for yourself in your business and you're looking at your team, you're like, well, why aren't they doing these things? Again, we're going back to ourselves. They're only going to do what we are doing.
So evaluate, what are you doing great with? What's going good? What do you think needs improvement? What are you avoiding? So if there is something that, you know, maybe you've been meaning to do something, maybe like if you're saying the words like, oh yeah, I have to do that, or I should do that, and then it doesn't happen, is that something you're avoiding? Why are you avoiding it? Is it uncomfortable? Is it an excuse of time? Whatever it is, what are you avoiding? Because those are the things that you might need to be leaning into. And in this business, there are going to be things you love about it, and there's going to be things you don't really like about it. That's okay. That's normal for life in the business, right? So lean into the things you love, enjoy that. That's good, leading to your strengths. But that as a business owner doesn't give permission to not do the things that you don't really like as much, or not grow out of your comfort zone. We have to balance that, and you have to do both with that.
And you have to be coachable. It's very hard as an upline to tell someone the hard truth anyways, every single time. Every single time my downline will come to me, where do I need to grow? I'm like, had to take a moment. Like, you don't want to tell someone. And obviously as a coach, and we're going to talk about that tomorrow, but there's ways to say things nicely. There's ways to get through to people. We're not going to talk about that right now, but if you're the one being told by your upline, hey, work on this, be coachable. Don't get defensive and don't get depressed. It's okay. That's another thing. Like, sometimes we're like, oh my gosh, I have this whole mountain of things I need to work on. I'll never be a diamond, and this is why I'm Ruby. And we get in our head, like, stop it. It's okay to have something to work on. I have things to work on. We all talk about it. It's like, gosh, I need to work on this. I need a book. I'm pretty sure every week I'm like, tell me a book on that. I have more books than I can even have time to read because I know I need to work on myself. So find your weaknesses and find your strengths, and focus on your strengths, but improve on your weaknesses. And that is how you'll be able to grow, because while you're doing the things that you're good at, slowly you will improve in the other areas, and you won't even realize that it's happening because you're not letting it sink you down and wear you down, and you're going up and down and you're frustrated and you got so much to work on. You don't prioritize, pick a few things.
That's empowering. I mean, Brittany mentioned earlier, like, what are you going to be for your money and that like, if you want to stay the exact same person, the same leader you are, in the same leadership live that you have, you want to take no, right? We all do. So that means finding the areas to work on, finding the weaknesses. That's empowering, because then you know, hey, I can grow here. I haven't reached the pinnacle. I haven't, like, I'm not perfect. None of us are, right? So it's empowering to know what you can work on and where you can grow. So lean into your leaders, the mentors in your life, ask them questions, take responsibility for that yourself, to ask questions and get feedback and want to hear in terms of how you can grow. How do you lead yourself through tough times? That is a hard thing, right? We all have hard things come up. We all have life happen. We have very devastating things happen. I mean, it's different for everyone a little bit, but everyone, life is going to happen, right? So when those things happen, how do you lead yourself? How do you lead in this business? Jump into that.
Yeah, this definitely is something that I had to learn. So I wasn't here last year and I was very frustrated. I planned the whole retreat and everything while in bed and sick. And how do you do that? First, you'd say, am I making an excuse for why I'm not working? Basically, in your heart, do you want to work, but you can't? That's how you know, is this a real reason or is this an excuse? It's your birthday today, but do you need to celebrate the whole month? I mean, those kind of things. You need to ask yourself, is this a reason? Is this an excuse? Or if there's a death or you're moving, is this short term or is this long term? If it's something that is long term, like a chronic illness, you're going to have to learn to work differently. So if it's long term, which I realized that mine wasn't going away anytime soon, I had to learn how to work when I felt good. So on the days when I felt good, I locked myself in my room and I would work all day. Because the rest of the week I was dizzy, I was nauseous, I couldn't move, I was sick. And I would hold the kids and just lay on the couch with them or do something like that. I wasn't doing coaching calls. But the day I felt good, I'd be like, who needs a call? Like, I feel good. I'm up, I'm moving, I'm great. Let's do this. I don't know how long this is gonna last. So you have to look at yourself. If you're in the middle of a move, give yourself 3 days to get the stuff done, because when we're moving, it can be like, oh, I'm moving. It doesn't end, right? It just takes so long. Schedule in 30 minutes during the move. What you don't want to do is get out of the habit of being a professional business owner. Can you sit in the middle of moving boxes and lead a call? Yep, been there, done that. After you have a baby, you want to just sit there and hold it, but does your voice work? Can you still talk? Can you do some coaching calls? The answer is yes. These aren't hard times. These are life. You have to separate hard times versus life, because life is hard. And when I first started my business, I had to realize those things too. I had to be like, okay, this is just life. Like, it's not hard raising 5 kids by yourself. This is just my life. And I need to learn how to work with my life. Otherwise, I am never going to get any work done.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes that means showing up when you don't necessarily feel like. I've definitely had to lead a call. Like, it's life, it happens, so it's, some of those things are pushing through, just like if you had a normal job and had to show up for work. If you didn't keep showing up, you're gonna get fired, right? We don't have that luxury. So that's when it comes back to leading ourselves. We're not gonna get fired. You guys can lead your businesses how you want. You can show up how you want. That is the luxury of this. But if you want to lead yourself well, if you want to create leaders, if you want to raise your leadership lid, you're going to have to decide how to show up in those ways and take ownership in that, because that's completely up to you.
And in network marketing, we'll say, oh, it's just my residual income. I'm just enjoying this residual income right now. Are you taking advantage of it? Are you really enjoying it? Residual income is for the hard times when you are getting divorced or you are fighting and you show up all the time through the hard times, but that time you cannot. Maybe it's 2 or 3 times a year. It's very rare. It's not every week. It's not consistent. Like, I would ask, like, Brittany, do I have to do this right now? Because I feel like I can't. I really cannot be in Hawaii. And there should be a struggle. That's how you know that you are not taking advantage of what you have, is you should feel a struggle of, I want to, but I can't. Because there are people in this room who have had things go on in their life, and it is really hard to show up, and you don't have to. But that is not the norm. And I think the norm is we'll make excuses for ourselves. So we want to grow in our leadership. If you have read one John Maxwell book, raise your hand. Amazing. What about 2? I'm impressed with you guys. 3? What about all of them? Who has read every single John Maxwell book? Brittany, you haven't even raised your hand. You guys, if you haven't read all of them, you still have room to grow in your leadership. That's me too. We all have this. I just got another one. How can we learn and how can we grow as a leader? If John Maxwell spent his whole life working on developing this in these systems in these books, you think that we should just read a few pages for a book club book and be like, got the leadership, and then you wonder why you're stuck in your business? It happens. It just blows my mind. So books that you should read at Ruby level: any John Maxwell book you can get your hand on. There are other good leadership books for sure, but a lot of them take stuff from him because they all sound very similar. So I would definitely start there. Investing in yourself, that is one way you can do it. There's so many others.
So if you haven't read 5 Levels of Leadership by John Maxwell, read it or read it again, be familiar with it. And that's where you can self-evaluate where you are in terms of your leadership level. There's 5 he talks about. Positional, that's just assigned anyone, you can be assigned a position. Congratulations, you're a leader, right? But there's going from there. Permission, that's about relationships. Production, that's actually what's happening, right? What are you seeing results from? People development, you're actually creating leaders, right? And then there's pinnacle, so the top. So you have the 5 levels. So where do you fall in that? And then what are you actively doing to intentionally grow and raise your lid from one to the other? And he talks about that in the book, how to specifically do that. And in order to do that, in order to raise your lid, it takes time, consistency, intentionality. It's hard. It's not like you're naturally like, oh, poof, I'm a higher level leader now. Like, oh, yay, that was fun and easy. I have some more people on my team, so that makes me, I've raised my leadership lid. It doesn't happen that way, right? So we have to be intentional. And the beauty of it is you cannot grow alone, right? Beauty and maybe downfall. Like, you're not going to sit here and just keep your same team and keep expecting to maybe grow your leadership lid, I should say. You have to grow with people. You have to develop people. You have to develop leaders. You have to have people following you, right? So you have to go with people, and you can also go down in your leadership lid. There can be things that happen that might bring you down. You can lose trust with people. You can show up differently, and it could change your dynamic. Your lid and where you fall on those 5 levels are different with each person. It's not necessarily one lid for your whole entire team. You might break that trust with someone, or you might be at a different level and develop relationships different with one versus the other. So how are you showing up, and how are you developing that?
Everything that you're reading, everything that you're learning, you have to put it into practice. And I think we're talking about this somewhere else too, but as leaders, you need to have a YouTube channel, and you need to be sharing your information with your team. If you're not doing that, you're relying on your upline to do it, or you're relying on your downline to figure it out for themselves. More than likely, you're relying on your upline, and that's not leadership. You are a part of a larger team, and your leaders should look up to them, but you are a leader. Even if I was talking to silvers, I'd say the same thing. So at Ruby level, I probably get a little mad if someone isn't doing this, because you guys are leaders. And sometimes we'll feel insecure, like I don't feel, and you'd probably be shocked to find out that I don't feel adequate enough to even teach you guys these things. Like, I still feel like silver Phallin, who's a diamond. Like, this is still me. I still have my beef jerky up here in case I feel like I need to.
I laughed at that. I'm like, why is there jerky? Are you going to eat during the training?
You never know. If I feel sick, I might need a bite of something. So you guys have to practice. You're going to fall. You're going to make mistakes. How do the best counselors get good at counseling? Their counseling sucked for a while, probably. It might have been subpar, but then they learned and they grew. So don't be afraid to fall. Don't be afraid to be like, wow, I could never train like Brittany Howard. Brittany Howard intimidates me sometimes because she's so good. Does that mean I'm going to not talk and let Brittany do all the talking? No, but that's what some of you guys are doing. She can say it better than me. I'm going to let her say it. No, you're going to get as good as whoever it is you look up to by coming up, by practicing, by doing these things.
I mean, goodness gracious, I would not be up here if I was comparing to everybody else, because I can say plenty other people who can speak better or be more dynamic or whatever it is. So you can't keep yourself in a comparison rut and think that, well, they do it better, so I'm not going to be the one stepping up. You decide and you step up, because you have people who are going to be able to relate to you differently. You have your team to lead. They need to see you. So you be the one to step up. This came in this is God moment. So last night before bed, I'm laying there and I read this to Chris. I'm like, okay, I get to read this tonight. So verse of the day came up on my phone. I'm like, this is perfect for this. So I'm going to read this to you. Hebrews 12 verse 11 says, for the moment, all discipline seems painful rather than pleasant, but later it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it. Another version says, no discipline is enjoyable while it's happening. It's painful. So it's not supposed to be easy. You're not supposed to wait till you're ready. You're not supposed to hop up and be like, yep, I was a natural at that and everybody loved it and whatever. Like it's gonna be hard to lead yourself. It's gonna be difficult. It's gonna be painful. It's not gonna be pleasant. That doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. That means you lean into it, you grow through it. It's gonna be what strengthens you. It's gonna be how God uses you. Later, the next two verses say, therefore lift your drooping hands and strengthen your weak knees and make straight paths for your feet, so that what is lame may not be put out of joint, but rather healed. So lift up your heads. Don't have a down fallen head thinking these are my, my weaknesses. I have so many areas to grow, like Phallin said earlier. Lift up your head and straighten your path and get to work and lead yourself, because God is using each of you in a different way. You all have your own strengths. You all have your value to add. And that is what you are here for. You're not here for, to be like someone else necessarily, or do it just as good as someone else, right? You can look at them and be like, because of them, I can do that. They have that gift. I'm going to learn from them. I'm going to ask them questions. I'm going to figure out how to, speak like that, or do that, or lead like that, or love and serve like that. Leadership is not just a mic, right? We serve in a lot of ways for leadership.
And let me tell you, big term picture, long-term vision here. I would love to see every one of you leading your own retreats with all of your own people there, because I believe every single one of you can do exactly what we're doing here. Brittany Howard's about to come up here and train with me, and we would show up at Panera to an empty room. We'd look at each other. How long do we wait? Do we go home? What do we do? That's what our business has started out as. That's
All right.
it.
We're done. Thank you.